Good morning. My name is Roselena Sagun, and I am an attorney here in the city of Riverside. I am also an activist in that I do a lot of work with the community to prevent fraud against really the immigrant community, against people in general. But our focus is usually the immigrant community because it's such a difficult time and people are desperate and they will pay any amount of money in order to be able to legalize. My focus today will be in part what to do if we have contact with immigration, whether it's down the street, in our homes, in our vehicles, at work. Very general information and some tips. How can we be allies? How can we be allies? Maybe I'm a citizen, maybe I'm a permanent resident. How can we be an ally in these very difficult times? And I want to thank RCC for having me here. I want to thank the administration of RCC for making it very clear that RCC is a safe space for our students. That RCC is not opening the door to anybody that wants to harm our students because of a condition that they had no control over. So let's get right to it. Immigration is conducting a series of raids or operatives that are really designed to scare the community and are in fact resulting in mass detentions, not as massive as are being reported. So the president tweeted that there were going to be millions of people that were going to be deported, right? You guys saw this. Well, the reality is that for that to happen, the government practically has to shut down and change all their resources into the Department of Homeland Security for something so massive to take place. And second, the impact on the economy would be catastrophic. So who are we kidding? But we do have to remember that these tweets, that these threats are effective in scaring the community into staying home, into not going grocery shopping, into having somebody take their kids to school. So the effects are deeply felt within our community. If somebody has an order of deportation or detention and officers come to somebody's home, that order of deportation or detention does not give those officers the power to enter the home. An order of detention is not an order that allows officers to come in to people's homes. So we need to know that because we don't have to open the door. And we have to have these conversations with our friends, with people in the community. It doesn't matter that they're looking for you or that they say they're looking for you. You don't have to open the door. But what happens? What do they say? What do the agents say? They say, if you don't open the door, I'm going to knock that door down. Have them knock the door down. Because the reality is they won't. They don't have that power, but they will scare the community into letting them in. So number one, an order of detention is not an order that allows the police or immigration to come into your home. Do not invite them. Opening the door is inviting them. Opening the door a little bit is inviting them. So let's talk about not making that mistake. In addition, sometimes they will say they're looking for somebody else to get you to open the door, to get that conversation started. And once they're inside, they will then ask for information on whoever is there. So don't open the door to anybody that you're not expecting. And let's have this conversation with our kids who usually run to get the door when mom or dad is busy. Do not start a conversation with the agents. And here my advice is much more conservative in terms of protecting the community. I say don't even engage them in asking who they're looking for, who they are, what they need. Why? Because it's then very difficult to stop that connection that you've made with that officer, and that officer may just camp out there and wait. And it doesn't matter that they know you're home because the TV's on and there's cars there. It doesn't matter that they know you're home. But I would not start a conversation with them for purposes of trying to figure out what they're doing there. We do know that sometimes they wait until the next morning very early for people to go to work. And if they know who they're looking for, they sometimes have photographs, they sometimes don't. The mistake is made there, on the street. Before I move on to what happens on the street, let me tell you another area where my advice is different than a lot of great organizations that are doing this type of work, community education. I don't say, if you have a warrant to enter the house, let me see it. You know, you see some of the posters the ACLU says if they have a warrant, have them show it to you. I don't say that. Because one, we're in such a state of fear that we may not even be in a position to be reading a legal document. And two, even if you weren't in a state of fear, who of us has the legal expertise to look at a document and determine whether it's a legitimate warrant to enter your home? We don't have that knowledge. So I say, don't open the door. If they have the power to knock it down, they're not going to bother knocking and trying to convince you to open the door. Okay? So my advice varies from that of a lot of great organizations in that I don't say, ask for the warrant and review it, and then if it's legit, let them in. I say no contact, because it's hard to terminate or finish that connection once you've started it with that officer. What happens on the street? What happens on public transport? Greyhound is a favorite. If immigration asks you or someone you know your name, you don't have to answer it. You have to say, I am not, and I have this card up here that my office provides free. We brought some here, share with your friends. It says, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm exercising my right to remain silent. If you detain me, I will continue to exercise my right to remain silent. And I'm going to leave unless you have cause to detain me. And if you detain me, I still will remain silent. The number one mistake our community makes is to blurt it out. I'm in the process of legalizing. I don't have status. And sometimes they will not ask you what your status is. They may ask you when you came in the country because you look foreign to them. And so by saying, I came in the country 10 years ago, how long have you lived here? 10, 15, 20 years? That answer carries with it the notion that we're foreign. And then once you do that, once you give them that information, then it's up to you to prove that you're here legally. And if you can't, that's what gives them the power to then detain you. So a lot of the detentions come about because the people give immigration the information that they need to detain them. You are not protected if you have a petition somewhere in the process. If you have something with immigration, some process, and you think you're protected, talk to an attorney. Because I have seen people that carry a receipt and they think that protects them when really that receipt yells out, I am here undocumented. Don't answer any questions. None. I wouldn't, even if I'm a citizen, answer any questions. And here's where you can be an ally. If you're in a group and immigration comes, the U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident can be an ally by saying, I'm not answering any of your questions. Say it in Spanish, that'll really get them going, because then the attention is on that person. That's how you can be allies. They're not going to take you to jail, but they're going to focus on you because they're going to think you're the one with the problems. Something to think about, something to consider in these horrible times that we're living now. It's a bit more difficult now when there's some operatives where immigration is stopping vehicles. Now, if a vehicle is stopped and it's not for a reason of a traffic violation, it's only because we're brown or we're maybe driving a work truck, we can file motions to try to terminate some of those deportation cases. But it really takes that person to remain calm and to say, I'm not answering any of your questions. And if they say, oh, you were stopped for an infraction, or they will say, we're looking for somebody else. We want to make sure that it's not you. Let me see your ID or your license. And what do we have here in California? we have the licenses that are marked. Actually, my license is marked and I'm going to keep it. I went to apply for the Real ID, but I wasn't prepared. I didn't have all the documents. So they gave me mine that's marked. And I think I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to keep it and I'm going to use it. And if there's ever a need for me to be an ally, I will give them my license and see what they want to do. Right? The attention will be on me. Officers are now, they always have, and it's legal that they lie to you to try to get the information that they need from you. Completely legal, completely constitutional. They're not your friends. And if they tell you, oh, if you just identify yourself, I'm just looking for somebody else, you'll be fine. Those are all lies. So officers are not your friends, ever. And I say that ever because if somebody's interrogating you, they have a job to do. Some of them are nice people, but they have a job to do. And for a lot of these agents, their job is to process people and get them to sign voluntary departures to leave the country. So we talked about generally, if ICE comes to your home, if you see them on the street. What about work? Immigration has to give your employer notice that they're coming. Usually employers are scrambling to get ready to make sure that all their documents are in a row. But if there's a surprise visit by ICE, don't run. And let's have this conversation. Because when you run, that gives them cause to stop you and see what's wrong. Don't lie, but again, remain silent and don't answer any questions at all. Don't identify yourself, your place of birth, how long you've been in the country, that you're married to a citizen, that you have U.S. citizen kids. And right now, we're not going to talk about what rights do you have to legalize under various scenarios. That's not why we're here. But I think right now it's critical that we have information so that people can protect themselves and so people don't fall prey to those that are eager, waiting to take advantage of that fear so they can make a buck. And that's happening all the time. It's very hard to say to somebody with a badge and a gun that you're not going to answer their questions. And even though the card says, I want to talk to my lawyer, here's her number, they're never going to call me because they know I'm going to say, my client's not answering any of your questions. They get angry when you know your rights. They get angry. One of my clients said, as soon as I brought out your card, they were angry because they said, oh, you must have something to hide. You already talked to an attorney. But they left him alone and they didn't ask him any more questions. But your right to remain silent goes away if you toss it in the trash yourself by starting to talk. Don't lie. And don't say you're a U.S. citizen when you're not because you feel you could pass for one. That can close the doors to future legalization opportunities for you. Don't lie. So when I tell people don't answer any questions, I am in no way saying lie and say you're a citizen. Those are two very different things. Now, let me see how much time I have so that I gauge myself. We have about 10 more minutes. When somebody is detained, right? Maybe ICE has their photograph. Maybe ICE detained them on the way to work, on the way to school. It used to be that the administration, it used to be before this current administration, that if somebody had a child in school and they were the only parent, they wouldn't be detained. They would be processed and given a date to show up later. But right now we're seeing awful things where parents are not there to pick up their kids at school. Nobody's safe. Everybody is a priority for enforcement, so they're trying to get everybody out. That's not a very realistic goal because, you know, the economy again would come crushing down. And the reality is these myths about why everybody should be taken out, that they're on welfare, that they're committing crimes, not fact-based. So a way that we can be allies is to be informed so that when that conversation starts, you can say, stop, that is incorrect. And one of the most unfortunate things that I see, shameful, is when you have an immigrant that has made it, that is here thriving, say, we need to get them out. I find that shameful, personally offensive, and I didn't realize how much of that exists. So I thank you for being here and being a part of this conversation, because the reality is this touches all of us. It is not about one sector. We are all a community, and it's affecting us all, especially young children. Before I close the presentation on what to do, if you're detained, immigration will give you a number that starts with the letter A. It's your alien number. I hate that term. That A number is the way your family can trace you. And immigration is in no rush to have their systems updated so that somebody can go on their website and track you. So that you need to tell your friends, relatives, anybody out there that may be in this position that if they're detained, they need to call their family immediately and provide them with the A number and their location. Because we've had cases where we know the client's there because they're calling us, the system does not show they're there, and no officer can seem to track them. It takes a few days. And when family is afraid, you need to be able to have the person that's detained know to call with the A number, and know not to be pressured to sign a voluntary departure. Let me tell you what these officers may say. You're going to be deported anyway. I'm just going to keep you here for 6 months to a year, and you're going to be deported anyway. So why don't you do yourself a favor and sign this voluntary departure now? And it works. It really works. People get scared and panicked. So the time to have the conversation about what to do is not when they're picked up. It's very early so that you can know with confidence that your friend, your relative, your classmate knows their rights and will not sign a voluntary departure to their country, knowing that they still have rights here. Immigration agents are not your friends. I'm proud to say that I have had, sheriffs refer clients to my office, immigration agents refer clients to my office, and I thank them. But I would be lying to you to tell you, hey, some of them are cool, so they may be right in guiding you. They're there to do their job.